Hi, my name is İlgi Özler, and I'm a professor of political science and international relations at SUNY New Paltz. I also am the founding director of the SUNY Global Engagement Program in New York City. My one thing that I would like to get out of this session is information.
Information. Super. Maria?
Hello, I'm Maria Ivanova. I'm a professor of global governance at the University of Massachusetts in Boston, where I also direct the Center for Governance and Sustainability. So I work on global environmental institutions, and I'm here because I would like to make connections.
Connections. Fantastic. Fantastic. Megan?
They both took my one word for why I'm here, so now I need a new one. Hi, everybody. I'm Megan. I am the Director of University Partnerships with the GREEN program. I'm actually not at an institution, but my role is I work with institutions to co-develop programs focused on sustainable development abroad and online during pandemics. So we run sustainable development focused programs in Iceland, Japan, Nepal, and Peru. And I am here for ideas to provide a new word, but I liked Maria's and Elga's too.
Ideas. Excellent. Deborah?
Hi, everybody. My name is Debbie Rowe, and I'm a professor of renewable energy technologies and sustainable development for 41 years. And I'm also president of the U.S. Partnership for Education for Sustainable Development and run 2 national networks of over 60 national higher ed associations. And I also work with the World Bank and UNEP. And you can see I put something in the last chat about an event we're having. I'll put it in this chat too. My desired word is outcomes.
Outcomes. All right. Super. We'll go over to Kimberly.
Hi, I'm Kim Sars. I am at Seattle Pacific University. I am the Associate Dean for the School of Business, Government, and Economics. And all great words so far. I would have to say, I'm going to use more than one word, expand my thinking.
I'll put a hyphenation in there. We're all set. All good. Expand my thinking. 2 hyphenations. Awesome. Let's go to John.
Yeah, good afternoon. I put up on chat the reason I'm not going to be connecting by video, and we'll have to be in and out, but I have a very active 23-month-old that I'm multitasking with. I'm at St. Francis College in Brooklyn, New York. Been connected to the SDSN for many years. St. Francis is a member of the community of practice. I was involved in maybe the first little meeting with the community of practice back in September? No, within the last several months. Anyway, what I want to get out of this is expand network.
Excellent. Great. Natalie? We do Natalie.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to try to get to a spot where I can join on video here in a few minutes. I am at the University of Florida. I am a lecturer for global agricultural leadership development and just connecting in with the SDSN through a project with some folks at my university that are in the NDP crew. So here to listen and learn. I know that's 2 words, but sorry.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Super. Young Heng.
Hi, my name is Jungkoon. I'm a professor at Wisconsin School of Business at University of Wisconsin-Madison. Mentioning I moved from Singapore to Madison. I spent 9 years in National University of Singapore, where at that time I was also chair of the World Economic Forum's Real Estate Committee. And then in Singapore, we taught a lot about sustainable development. I'm a professor of real estate. So after I moved to Wisconsin-Madison, I tried to extend the discussion here, but realizing Wisconsin-Madison in business school especially, this subject is a little bit foreign. So I spent 3 years trying to add the contents and element in my teaching. I teach urban and regional economics contents. I I put a group project, ask students to work on a group project of sustainable development. Of course, it's broadly defined, including the climate change, affordable housing issues. My goal is collaboration.
Collaboration, super. Yes, and thank you, Sanjay. Just who's ever hosting, Mary, is that I think, thank you. Can you let Alex in, or is she not?
There's no one in the waiting room.
All right, that's what I figured.
Oh, now there is.
All right, as soon as you said it, right? Perfect, perfect. Awesome, and I think Alex just joined us as well. Hey, Alex.
Hey, I thought
sorry
I was
about that.
For calling out white cis men for being assholes.
All good, all good.
But I got let in, so.
No worries. So, so we just went through. Is there anyone that we did not connect with, or that did not do a quick introduction? I think we got everyone. But I'm gonna have Alex introduce herself. Alex, we're just doing name, institution, and the one word that you're hoping to get out of today's session, other than let me in.
Alex, CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, learning. I want to learn from all of you about what you're doing. That's my hope.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. My name is Ryan McPherson. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at the University at Buffalo. Like I think it was Megan, Alex just took my word. So we wanted to turn this session really into a discussion piece. I know a lot of these are hard, right? Because a lot of them are picking up great information from awesome people. But we wanted to really try to turn that around with this session and have, and it's just the right number that we were looking for in terms of some input from all of you on kind of, where you are with the SDGs throughout the higher ed sector, both where you are and what you're looking to try to get from other people in terms of learning through their experiences. And so Alex, correct me here or guide me, but I think what we wanted to maybe start off with is there's so many different ways that we could go with that kind of conversation. I think we were kind of looking at maybe starting in maybe dividing into kind of 4 areas to start the conversation. So whether we're looking at kind of university policy or education research, engagement, reporting, there's probably other categories as well. But we were thinking of maybe starting the conversation off in one of those and then advancing to the next. So again, those categories were, for lack of better definition around this, university policy, 1, 2 would be kind of the education research angle, 3 would be engagement, and 4 would be reporting. Mm-hmm. And I know there are other categories there, so we don't have to be we don't have to be rigid with these definitions, but thought that might help us. Alex, is that?
The whole point of the global goals is that it is localized, so you can do what you want with them, and that includes this reporting. But is there someone in this group who would like to report back to there's a report back session at the end of this, and it shouldn't be me or Ryan because we're moderating it. So I will say names: Megan, Jungkoon, Ilgu, Kimberly, Natalie, John, Deborah, Caroline, someone. Does anyone want to report back? And the cool thing is that if you report back, you can say whatever you want to say. You actually don't have to say what happened here. You can influence it in your own way. So
I'll also have notes on it, so you won't need to feel extreme peer pressure.
I'll do it. I'll report back if you take the notes. That's a deal.
Oh, that's a good negotiation right there. I'm bringing Alex into my next negotiation with my president there. So I love that. World peace was just established.
Yeah, I'm pretty angry about things. So
I just want to underscore Alex's point there, and one of the things that we really wanted to kind of frame everything with in this conversation is, we have these, I'm sure all of us concur, we have these awesome 17 global challenges that we're all working on. They're a way to bring, so many other people around the sustainability table. They're fantastic at branding, the metrics, all of those things. But when you're working at a university, trying to deal with these kind of high level things as both a strength and a weakness. But the idea of localizing those and really, keeping the content or the challenge itself, but thinking about what does that mean at my university, right? What it means at my university may not be the same thing as what it means to the US or to Haiti or another country. And so I think we really want to advance that dialogue today to see, what you're doing at your campuses and in your space, in your communities on that front, right? How are the roots that you're trying to develop in a different place than perhaps what the 17 SDGs were the original audience, which was nation states, if you will. So why don't we kick that off and again, we don't have to stay in these categories, but maybe I'll give us a starter here and others can jump in. On the policy side, I've been working with some of my colleagues across the state, including our friends at New Paltz and others, on developing a system-wide, a higher education system-wide approach to advancing the SDGs. And we call it kind of the framework. And the framework is essentially, over the past couple of years, we've had sustainability coordinators across the state, and the SUNY system has 64 campuses, so it's very broad and diverse, from community colleges to our institution with 30,000 people and research focused. And the idea was to take the SDGs, but put kind of new targets under them that were across the teaching, research, engagement, policy side that created new goals. And so goals within each of the 17, there's about 6 or 7 within each of those. And then pegging those goals at the campus level, at the system level, and then also at individual campuses. And so that was an effort that started with sustainability coordinators wanting to try to gain traction with those. And now it's at the system level, where the system has now taken that as a task force and is really trying to get feedback across its institutions. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of good, healthy, as my wife and I call it, healthy dialogue, right? Some give and take across those, from both mandates, but also collaboration where there's a proverbial win-win. So that's what we're kind of doing at the SUNY system. And I would love to hear from others of things we can leverage from your experiences that would help us move forward. Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm at the UMass system, right? I'm in the University of Massachusetts in Boston. There is no talk about the goals at all in our university. So are there any other universities where these goals are not discussed, or is everyone so far ahead that you've already internalized them?
No, I'm going to jump in and just interrupt you. Absolutely not. We haven't, my whole job is to get other people to talk about the goals, and no one's talking about them. And that's fine. I don't care if people know about the Sustainable Development Goals. What the important thing is that people understand the cross-cutting work that is part of what the Sustainable Development Goals are about. So no one left behind. There are no white male supremacists who go around claiming credit for other people's ideas. There are no people who get to do something that leaves other people behind. So my firm belief, and it's maybe not my university or when I was working for New York City, is that the idea about cross-cutting issues is important. So who cares if you know about the Sustainable Development Goals? That's cool, that's neat, that's helpful. But more importantly, what are the ideas behind it? And I've absolutely failed at my job at CMU to get people to know about the goals, and that's okay. I'm fine with it, mostly.
No, and I mean, I'm asking here quite also with another agenda, because our chancellor spoke yesterday. Marcelo Suarez Orozco is our new chancellor at UMass Boston. Mm-hmm. He's now part of the leadership council of SDSN. But our university doesn't talk about the SDGs. So we have a chancellor at the top who is now part of this leadership council. And Caroline, I'll be looking to you for ideas of how to get, for the first time now, we have, in a sense, commitment at the top. I don't know, how deep that will go. There's a lot of commitment from the bottom, but it has to meet somewhere. And I think that the middle part of the leaders of whether it's departments or whether it is offices, we do not have a sustainability office, Ryan. Our office was recycling and sustainability. And those two things do not fit together. And I've worked on sustainability at William and Mary before I came to UMass Boston, and we changed the university around. And I'm on the Sustainability Council at Yale, where I represent the alumni, and it's a lot of great work that has happened there. But so I see the difference in public institutions and private institutions, and I'd love to learn about the various strategies. Once we have leadership at the top and at the bottom, how do we actually make things happen?
Oh, this is absolutely a place where I want to hear from other people, but I have to react to your point, Maria, that it's not about the sustainable development goals. It's about like exactly the points that you raised in terms of like equity and things like that. And the SDGs are an opportunity, not an obligation, to move people forward, move universities forward on other issues that they're working on. So like you can say, oh, why don't you commit to the sustainable development goals? And by the way, when you committed to the sustainable development goals, you said X, Y, Z, and now you have to do it. So yeah, anyway,
I think that's a great point. I wanted to get Ilgu in. I would just add in the handoff over, it's sometimes the SDGs are simply a name for something that is already occurring in a lot of different places on your campus, right? And so I think the language one uses is really important, because adding something new to someone's plate can be very challenging, right? People kind of tense up and like, I've already got enough, versus talking about reducing inequalities, which is happening on your campus, I am sure, right? But they're not talking about it within SDG 10, right? They're not necessarily making that connection. So Ilgu, sorry, I wanted to hand that off to you.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you so much. As a part of the SUNY system, we had seen each other with 4 or 5 faculty and staff members from my campus that have been kind of talking about how to think about SDGs as a part of our strategic plan on our campus as we are discussing our new strategic plan into the future. And what I'm hearing from Maria is an interesting issue about like when you have top level buy-in and then some push from the bottom, somewhere in the middle, what happens is that you have these silos that we were talking about in the previous session, right? So our sustainability coordinator is under facilities, right? We have a bunch of faculty members coming from different departments, but I'm from LANS and we don't have anyone from business or STEM sections. And so we're all talking to each other, but then we're not talking to the outside world. So I think that what is really important here on our campuses is to make this accessible and make also kind of break down boundaries and create spaces where people can intersect with one another, right? It's part of that intersectionality, not on race, class, and gender, but this is like faculty, staff, and kind of students and high-level administrators and mid-level administrators. Because a lot of times high-level administrators will make decisions about SDGs and say, this is what we're gonna do, and not add like it's an unfunded mandate for mid-level people who are trying to accomplish these things, right? We have to think about that SDGs should not create an unfair situation for people who are working either. So it's kind of like, from the perspective of SDG implementation on our campuses, what does it mean in a holistic fashion? I think we have to think about that. And that becomes really difficult when you gear into action. I mean, it's really easy to talk about them and say, hey, aren't these great ideas? But when it comes to implementing them, it becomes, especially given that like we had the good news of a 4.5% potential budget reduction last, for next year, right? So it's like with limited budgets for universities, how do you deal with this in a way? How do you kind of expand on your work to try to implement these goals?
Yeah, those are great points, Ilgu. I want to go to Megan and then up to Deborah.
Just a few quick thoughts. Thanks, Ryan. On the note of, so again, I'm not at an institution. I work for a global education provider, but it's an interesting perspective to have because I work with a bunch of different institutions and our programs integrate SDG competencies into the program. And so I work with a lot of different institutions who it might be something really integrated into their institution, like the University of South Florida, for example, does a really great job with that. And other campuses, it's brand new. And we're kind of like this wedge in the door of starting to have an opportunity for their students to engage with SDG education or with faculty. So one thing I'll say from that perspective is that I'm seeing a lot more universities who do have it as part of credit or something that aligns to our programs, pre-existing coursework that is tied to the SDGs. So I'm definitely seeing an uptick, but it's a minority of universities in my experience. From the education abroad industry, so your study abroad offices, your international director of international programs, all those people who I work very closely with. One of the main bodies for that area of higher education, called the Forum on Education Abroad, is actually this year about to announce guidelines for integrating the SDGs into study abroad. So if your campus adheres to study abroad guidelines as put out by the Forum, who's one of two of the main big conglomerates of people working together to set standards for study abroad. One of them will, as of next month, have standards that are mapped onto the SDGs, which is really exciting for us. We love to see that. And the final thing I'll say is I think one of the benefits of a study abroad office or a program that is mapped onto the SDGs is you can send students from all different departments onto that program and faculty. And then all of a sudden you could have like a business engineering program in Iceland studying renewable energy, or you could have any number of different departments or students from those departments collaborating together and tackling and understanding and learning and engaging with a global mindset, understanding how it manifests locally abroad, working with those locals abroad to understand those issues.
So, Megan, what is it about the work that you see in international education where they're looking at the goals as an opportunity versus probably the first way I looked at them, which was like, holy crap, another thing, right? That's on the list. How do I possibly find capacity to do that, right? Because I think human nature, sometimes that's where we maybe start at, or at least some of us.
It's a good question. I think from my perspective, I think the study abroad field was newer to get to the topic of sustainability, and perhaps it's the success of lots of sustainability officers at different campuses reaching out to them. I think a lot of study abroad offices were pushing off conversations of sustainability and sustainable development because people are always getting on their case about flights and, all this stuff and all of their bad impact. And so like, okay, leave me alone kind of thing. Somewhere in the past year and a half, the industry has had a really big mindset shift, and they've been really proactive about trying to, okay, we need to address climate, we need to talk about sustainability. This has to be a part of international education. And obviously we all feel committed. And I think part of the SDGs, international education falls into that very perfectly, multiple SDGs. It's an essential part of an education, but, you do need to address different elements in the room of impact and harm and things that could happen if you're not careful. And so in looking for a framework, I think in testament to the SDGs for an industry that might have been pushing off the sustainability conversation, it looked like the best and a useful framework when they wanted to get started with that. So yeah, in just a matter, they sent out a draft this morning actually of what those guidelines would look like, and they're going to announce and have workshops in their annual conference next month, training all these study abroad directors and SDG integration. So now's the time to reach out to your study abroad office, if none of you are in one. Yeah.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, so hi, everybody. Over the last 15 years when Ishi would get requests for who's going to go to colleges and universities to help train the faculty and staff, and they didn't have bandwidth for it. They would just give me those connections. And so I've had the real opportunity and the privilege to learn from over 100 colleges and universities where I went and did the faculty training, which I don't want to do a lot of traveling anymore. So anybody wants my stuff and you want to use it, that's fine. And to watch how they transform their campuses. And so what I would suggest is that it's almost like a community organizing job, that you've got to look at all the different stakeholders, and then you've got to look at what motivates them. And then you want to look at how do you build a coalition of support that is so much fun to go to. So make sure that your meetings are fun and productive, and you've got to manage the emotional climate of it so that people want to get on board. And so depending on where you're at and how much energy you have, I would have different strategies to suggest. I no longer do keynote speeches. If they give me a keynote plot or a spot, what I say to people is write down on a little slip of paper where you're stuck and hand it forward. And then I just spend the time going through people's stuck points, because you're all at different kind of places. But here's what I would suggest. Reach out to people and use what I call our 2 magic sentences. You are in a unique and important position to help create a sustainable future. We can't imagine doing this without you. And you can do that to people from different disciplines and convene them in their interdisciplinary work. So you can do it by enthusiasm and encouragement and stakeholder coalition building. But the other side is, and you guys talked about the middle managers, SOS, which is Students Organizing for Sustainability, and has created a green office program for the middle managers, because it is an issue. The middle managers are the ones who were worried about their jobs, etc. So what we have found is useful is if you have a president who's supportive and you have a grassroots of champions, get quotes from all of them, but particularly from the president. Get, so glad you're a champion. Now let's make this happen, and have some meetings with them where it gets into the job descriptions and the performance appraisals of the middle managers. You want to see things change, you've got to set it up so that even if it's something simple, like in their performance appraisals, the sentence is added. How did you help with integrating the SDGs into our curricular, co-curricular, and operations sides and our community partnerships? I could go on with other silos too, like our legislative outreach, which I think is really crucial. So I just have, I'm going to stop there, but I've got a whole long list of things that different institutions have done that work. And so you can have a lot of fun with it. And I'll just put my email into the chat, but I also put the email in for this World Bank UNEP event I'm doing next week. So I may not get back to you until after that event. And if I don't get back to you, just send it again. I get a lot of emails, but I'm glad to talk about where your stuck points and how do you make this happen. And just a call out to SUNY New Paltz, because you also have a outreach to faculty every year where you do training of sustainability fellows. And so that keeps the momentum going. I've seen campuses do it with money. I've seen campuses do it without money. So.
Thanks, Deborah. That's great. Alex, can I have you just quickly reinforce your point about using the global goals as a tool for organizing, and then if we could segue over maybe to a little bit more of the coursework, and Natalie, I know you've gotten a couple of good comments in there. I'd love for you to expand on those if that's possible.
Sure. I think that I'm just loving this conversation so much and so excited to hear from all y'all. At CMU, what we're doing, basically the first step is like even figuring out what we're doing on the global goals and using this as a way to understand how we can interact with different parts of the university. So I think that it's really important to acknowledge that it's not a competition. There are other university things that do competitions, but I think the global goals are a way to understand how we're doing, what we're doing, and how to improve it. And also, because it's a common language, how we can learn from other people. And so I was just listening to what Deborah was saying and what other people are saying and thinking, gosh, I would love to learn from you how we can do better at our university. And the global goals are a way to do that. And it's not 2.37 SDG 9.1 or whatever, like weird, like statistics. It's basically a common framework that we can use to learn from each other. So I don't know if that's what you're asking, Ryan, but that's what I'm sharing. So thank you.
That's great. Natalie?
Yeah, in terms of courses, we've had some good conversations in an interdisciplinary group that's worked on this guide together, that we kind of discovered each other doing siloed things and finally came together at the same table to have a conversation. And so now we're figuring out where all these different courses are and how they might be using the SDGs. The program that I run on campus is an interdisciplinary certificate program. And so I love using the goals because it cross-cuts all of these different students that are coming in from different majors and gives us something common to talk about. And so I think it's an evolving thing on our campus. Several folks have noted that, you know, having some of that higher up support is certainly beneficial in that process. So we've got some conversations. This guide that we put together kind of drew some attention from some of our deans. And so we've got a couple of conversations coming up in the next several weeks around what does that support look like at the university level, and are they on board or not? And that will kind of frame what direction we take with how that collaboration across campus looks.
That's really helpful. You know, one of the things that we've heard a bunch with these is kind of this, especially from a student course perspective, is like purpose, right? Like, so that really powerful word of when you look at the SDGs and you're coming in as an undergrad and you're maybe 18, 19 years old and you have no idea what you want to do with your life, and you start to see these oversimplified terms, right? But that can act as a lure in a sense, right? To bring you and explore and differentiation. From my perspective as a sustainability officer, like, it's a great way to also say, this is what we mean when we say sustainability. It's not, as Gina McCarthy is fond of saying, it ain't just the trees and the bunnies, right? It's these other pieces. It's about humans. And so I'm curious, you know, if you're seeing that with your students, the receptivity there. And I'm also curious if people are seeing that with their faculty, who are trained to zone into this incredibly narrow area. And sometimes, I don't want to say lose the bigger picture, but, you know, by definition, right, they are supposed to be experts in this very small space, but do they know that space is really about creating sustainable cities or reducing inequalities or whatever it is?
Gosh, and can I add to that, Brian, that it's so frustrating to me when I talk about sustainability. I am not an energy expert or whatever. Like, I'm more interested in equity and things like that. And people don't understand that the global goals are about leaving no one behind. And so I'd be so curious to hear from all y'all how you like tap into that and understand that it's not just about like having like less greenhouse gas emissions or whatever it is. So
right.
All ears.
Yeah, no, I get it. Ilga, can you go, and then Kim, if that's okay.
Yeah, I have actually, I'm going to address this issue directly because our Sustainability Fellows program, I think, initially started as like, you know, sustainability in the narrow sense of looking at environment. And as SDGs discussion came into fruition on our campus, our sustainability program has actually expanded. So our fellows are now discussing things beyond net zero energy. It's about equity and justice and leaving no one behind. And that really made it more applicable to a broader group of fellows. Now, I haven't been a part of that group because it gives course release for people, and I'm like, I already teach about these things. I don't need to be incentivized, so I never applied for that program. But in that I teach about the UN semester, so it's easy for me to teach about the SDGs in my class. So what we have done, and I'm sorry if you've heard this 1,000 times in other meetings, but I use my UN class as a space where we can bring in community members together with campus people and our students, where we have roundtables and discussion about the SDGs and what does it mean to our community here on our campus and in the larger Hudson Valley. And a lot of fruitful discussions came into play. I mean, things as simple as students bringing up issues about our campus health services not having reproductive rights counseling, for example, for students, and that they have to go off campus to get reproductive rights, health advice, for example, and that they were saying that this is unjust for female students, and that should be like little things like that were coming in these discussions that kind of was pointing out where we need improvements, but also pointing out where we are doing well. So kind of mixing up education and classroom setting with bringing in the community. And I know I'm kind of encroaching into the next topic here, but they don't have to be separate from one another. It's kind of like this applied learning process about the SDGs in the classroom setting, bringing global to the local in a way.
That's great. Global, as we call it, right? Kim.
Well, kind of this conversation and the last one that we were having, we've been, the business school is also a prime champion school. And so we do a lot, so principles of responsible management education with the UN Global Compact connection. I'm not sure if everybody, I see some people nodding. So we as a faculty have been working on trying to integrate sustainable development goals, but we found two things is that we needed to talk about it in concepts. I think as Alexander was saying, because sometimes they get caught up in, oh, wait a second, isn't this just about climate action? And so we have to talk about, well, we have a mission to develop leaders that advance human flourishing. So what does that mean for institutions? What does that mean for business, government, civil society? What does that mean for poverty alleviation? So our faculty were able to say, oh, wait a second, I'm already talking about that. I'm already doing something around that. And so then we were able to kind of expand the conversation. And so what we're doing now is trying to connect what we do more fully with the goals. But again, we talk at both the goals and the concepts behind the goals. And now we're expanding across the university to say, hey, we would really like to talk about, for example, gender equity. We have some classes on gender. Sociology has classes on gender. How can we create some linkages across campus? But again, we don't say, oh, we want to talk to you about SDG number 5. Right. We want to talk to you about, hey, what are you doing in this field? Can we create complementary classes from all these different perspectives? And how do then we build out our own curriculum that is also more cross-disciplinary and bring in experts from other areas that we just don't have? So for example, we're going to create a sustainability minor, and we're asking the theology people to teach a class on creation concepts and stewardship, and we're asking the environmental scientists to teach us in elementary how do we educate ourselves on climate action, the science piece that we don't have the expertise. And so we're just scratching the surface on this. But again, the other point was there's no additional resources to do this. And so we just kind of have to tap into who's passionate about these topics and you want to join together, because we can't offer any other incentive besides that.
Okay, I'm jumping up and down in my seat, like agreeing with you, Kimberly, and like there's something that makes me so angry, like more angry than white men taking credit for my ideas, is what my friends and I in my previous job called the global goals cottage industry. So there are people who come in and say, oh, you're interested in the sustainable development goals? We'll charge you money so that we can like apply this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, this is actually a tool that you can use. What you're already doing, you can, like, exactly as you, Kimberly described it, like, we are doing this and the goals are a way to like better understand what we're doing. So when people say like, you need to collect more data, or you need to do this, or you need to do that, so that you can be in line with the sustainable development goals, they're looking for money and they're actually not interested in the broader points that you just laid out, which are like, how can we like talk about gender equity? How can we talk about these things that like people already care about and are working on, I mean. So I just very happy to hear what you're saying. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a great point. And you know, the other piece, Kimberly, that I think about it sometimes in the academy, right? We have our departments, and that's the way we've organized ourselves, and we think that that's how everyone else sees the world, right? When it's in fact only how faculty and administrators see the world, not even students. I think one of the things I like about the framework of the SDGs is that it actually is a much more realistic way of how people may view the world, or at least challenges in the world, right? And so it gets us to, it gets faculty who are all working on a specific problem. It kind of starts to break down. I know departments play a critical role, but sometimes that's not the way in which problems actually are solved, right? Hence the whole interdisciplinary approach. So I kind of think that part of it is a way to almost kind of question and smash up a little bit of the existing higher ed rubric that's been in place for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years. But I do think it's to Alex's point, it is about that maybe you know, the framework of those things that can be leveraged, not the actual goal in and of itself, more of a lens, if you will. Great. I know we're very close to time. Any concluding comments or other pieces that, Deb?
Yeah, so I would just like to share, I put in a resource doc that came out of the webinar we did a couple of weeks ago with multiple UN agencies on changing curricula. And in there is a piece that I wrote, I think it was from 2002. It's an interdisciplinary assignment that any faculty can put in that helps students focus on positive scenarios for the future of society. They get a lot of doom and gloom. It's really important for them to see the positive possibilities. It can be done in multiple disciplines, especially for those faculty who are like, I have too much to do, I can't add in more. And then it gets combined with a positive futures fair, where you bring in the organizations that are actually helping to create those positive scenarios, and students can get transformed with hearing about volunteer and career opportunities. So that's all described in that document. Please, as you develop your resources, if you would share it at the end of that document, because that goes into the Green Learning Network that'll affect people literally all over the world. And then the only other piece about this interdisciplinary thing is, and I'm too busy to do this thing, is we've got to get it into the tenure requirements. That if you do SDG work and interdisciplinary work, and you do applied journals, that's going to be acknowledged in your promotion and tenure stuff. And I really do think that we need to change impact factor. Anybody who wants to work on a subcommittee with me on that, I think that's something that we need to do so that we can create the systemic change that we all need. Thank you for this great conversation today.
I volunteer for that, Deb. That's a great point. Thank you.
Okay, good. Let's talk.
Okay.
Here. I know we're at time, but Alex, do you want to bring us home here? Any concluding comments?
I think the most important thing is that we can all learn from each other, and we're all doing great work, and everything that everyone here has said is something that we can do better at CMU. So like, how can we figure out how to use the goals as a common framework for us to do better at our jobs at our universities? Right
on. Our final comment, I'm going to take a point of privilege and give gratitude to Megan for being our reporter ever. Thank you very much. It was a privilege to talk to everyone today.
Sorry, Ryan, for cutting you off. Hopefully I do it justice, everybody. Let me know. Feel free to hop in if I miss any of your points.
Yeah, don't mess it up, Megan. We know we're not under pressure. Go ahead.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. Such a great conversation. I am sure we will stay connected. Over to your right, in my right, on the chat box, there is a link back to the mothership on the bigger session.
Bye. See you.